As we stated yesterday on the channel, E3 season is quickly approaching, which means companies are talking about their video games because it just makes sense. Everyone's talking about E3, all eyes are on E3, and it's the biggest video game event of the year, arguably. And today we got some new information about two games that I've definitely had my eye on: Super Mario Maker 2 and the Contra Anniversary Collection. We got the full list of games for the Contra Anniversary Collection, and I think there's definitely some very interesting games on here, so I definitely want to talk about that. But we also have to talk about a problem with Super Mario Maker 2, because if this is actually a fact and this is going to be what's in the game, honestly, it is a huge disappointment for this game. Not game breaking, not going to make me not buy the game or anything like that, but it's definitely something that needs to be addressed because honestly, it just makes no sense. So what's going on with Super Mario Maker 2 that's got me angry, and what is the full lineup of games for the Contra Anniversary Collection? Sit back, relax, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and let's jump into it.
Hey, RGT85. Hey, Sean.
Oh my god, it's Stevie Richards! So Super Mario Maker 2 is arguably one of my most anticipated games of the year. I think it looks absolutely great. I was not a massive fan of Super Mario Maker, the original game. I thought it was very good. I had fun playing other people's levels and things like that, but it seems like Super Mario Maker 2 is the proper advancement of this series. They included a bunch of new play styles. They included a bunch of new gameplay mechanics. They really added in a ton of stuff to this game to make it an actual true sequel instead of just something that just feels like a Wii U port of the game. I'm very impressed with the amount of content that they have added in this game. Of course, they did a full Nintendo Direct on this, and we learned so much information about it. Things like the hills, things like the various items you'll be able to use, the mean, angry sun face. I absolutely love stuff like that. Well, recently there was a press event for people to go and play Super Mario Maker 2. Basically, people from different websites got to go check out Super Mario Maker 2, and the embargo for this information lifted this morning. So we're starting to get more details about the game, and honestly, everything sounded great. Well, almost everything. There are a few problems with Super Mario Maker 2 that I definitely want to talk about, and I'm going to go from least important to most important because I think there's three issues that we've learned about Super Mario Maker 2 that might be a bit disappointing for some people. The third issue definitely being very disappointing. The first issue is that cool little stylus that they showed as a pre-order exclusive in other regions. That's not coming to North America, and honestly, that really just doesn't make sense to me. Obviously, people are going to be creating levels for this game in handheld mode alongside of using their television to get a better view of things. But if you include the stylus into this, I think that's a really cool little pre-order bonus because the Nintendo Switch screen is a touch screen. I don't understand why there's different pre-order bonuses for different regions when it comes to Nintendo. You see Europe get a lot of cool stuff when it comes to pre-order bonuses, and North America always just seems to get the short end of the stick with that. And of course, companies are going to come along and make styluses, and Nintendo may actually end up releasing this stylus just as a purchasable thing that you have to do for this game, but it just doesn't make sense to me. Styluses don't cost much at all to make. It's pretty much like making a pen, and if you can't afford to make a pen, like, what are you doing? I don't know. It's just a weird omission. Not a huge deal, but definitely something I would have liked to have seen as a pre-order bonus. The second issue with Super Mario Maker 2 has to be that there's no Amiibo support for this game. Now, me personally, I do not collect Amiibo. I never got into the Amiibo collection stuff, but I know a lot of people do collect Amiibo, and that was one of the things that made Super Mario Maker the original cool, because you could use those Amiibos in the game and get extra stuff. But with this game, there's not going to be any Amiibo support. So for me personally, not a huge deal. I don't care about that, but I do feel like some people may be disappointed that evidently there's not going to be any Amiibo support for this game, and it kind of shows you the future of Amiibo. Maybe Nintendo is finally sort of giving up on Amiibo. You're starting to see less and less Amiibo integration into their games. It used to be like a huge focal point, and now it's just sort of fading by the wayside, which is fine to me. I'm not a big fan of Amiibo, like I said, but it is interesting for Amiibo collectors out there. But the third thing I have a problem with, and I think a lot of people are going to have a problem with. So evidently, a Nintendo representative that was at this event was asked about the online multiplayer portion of the game, which is arguably one of the coolest features of this game, being able to create levels and play these levels with your friends online. Or can you play with your friends online? Evidently, you're only going to be able to play with randoms online, according to this Nintendo representative, because it may affect the leaderboard system that is in the game. What the hell? hell is that? That is absolutely ridiculous. That is something that needs to be changed ASAP. Now, granted, this Nintendo representative could have just misspoke. It has happened at events before. I've seen it at events before back when I worked with Nintendo enthusiasts. I know that sometimes representatives that were at the event would misspeak on something, and it ended up becoming a huge deal. But more than likely, this representative hopefully did not misspeak, or actually hopefully he did misspeak, because the fact that you will only be able to play with randoms online is absolutely ridiculous. Obviously, one of the key integrations of this game is the online multiplayer. You're going to want to play this game with friends. Why is there not a separate friends only mode where it doesn't have a leaderboard system? Like, that's a super easy thing to put into the game. Why would you omit being able to play a game with friends? Why are we paying $20 a month for this Nintendo Switch Online service if I cannot play an online game with my friends because of what it could do to the leaderboards? It's absolutely ridiculous. In my opinion, we don't even need leaderboards in this game. I think people just want to play this game online with other people, and especially their friends. So the fact that there's not going to be any online friend games in this game so far, according to this representative, is just absolutely ridiculous for me. It is not a game-breaking thing. It's not something that's going to make me not want to pick up the game, but it's definitely something that we're going to talk about in the review as a negative aspect if this is indeed true, because it is a negative aspect, and anyone saying that it's not a big deal, I think it's just downplaying the situation. It's absolutely ridiculous that in 2019, a mainline Nintendo game for a Nintendo Switch service online that I'm paying money for does not have the ability to play with friends, even in just a separate game mode that doesn't track your ranking. So those are the three problems with Super Mario Maker 2 going into the release of this game. Hopefully this representative just misspoke and this actually isn't the case, but I don't know, man. It's definitely very scary to think about this game not having any friends available to play with online. Let me know what you think of this in the comment section down below, if this is going to sort of shift your mindset on Super Mario Maker 2. And the other thing we have to talk about is that IGN just recently reported all of the games coming to the Contra Anniversary Collection. Now, recently, we just got the Castlevania Anniversary Collection from Konami, which was very good. We did a review on it of the channel. The little things like the, controls not being fully customizable for the NES and Game Boy games, it did irk me a little bit, and I think they could have put in Rondo of Blood instead of Castlevania the Adventure, but all in all, a very solid collection at $20, and something that I hope ends up getting a physical release. Now, we learned about the Contra Anniversary Collection around the same time we learned about the Arcade Anniversary Collection and the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, but we did not learn about all the games coming to it. Well, like I said, IGN has lifted the veil on this, and they have reported all the games coming to this collection, and I think it's a really good lineup. So these are the games that are going to be available on the Contra Anniversary Collection, available on day one of this game coming out. It is coming out on the Nintendo Switch, the PS4, and the Xbox One this summer. They did not give a concrete release date, but just like the Castlevania Collection, it will be $20. The games are as follows. We have Contra, the arcade version. We have Super Contra, the arcade version. We have Super C for the NES, which was the second Contra game released on the NES. We have Contra 3, the Alien Wars for the Super Nintendo. We have Contra Hardcore for the Sega Genesis. We have Contra for the NES. We have Contra for the Famicom. We have Operation C for the Game Boy. We have Probotector for the Mega Drive, which was the European release of Contra Hardcore. And we have Super Probotector Alien Rebels for the Super Nintendo, which was the Super Nintendo version of the game Contra 3, the Alien Wars, that released in Europe. So really a good list of games. Some people may be upset that Contra Force isn't on there, but Contra Force wasn't really a Contra game. Like, let's be honest. It was a reskin game that they put the Contra name on in order to sell copies of. It was the third game released on the NES. But I think having the arcade version of Contra and the NES version of Contra is very smart to me, because some people have that sort of attachment to the original Contra on the NES more so than the arcade version. It's kind of like Double Dragon is to me. I don't really care for Double Dragon the arcade version because I grew up playing Double Dragon the NES version, and that's what I sort of assimilate Double Dragon with. When I play Double Dragon the arcade, it just doesn't really hit those same notes for me. So it's great to see that they put those games in here. I think the Probotector games are very interesting. Now, if you're not aware, Contra was called Probotector in Europe because of different issues, the Iran-Contra scandal that was going on at that time, and I guess Konami was just trying to shift away from that, and Europe had their own little licensing and deals in place. So the games that came out in Europe were called Probotector, and instead of playing as humans, you actually played as robots. Now, there were some regional differences between these games as opposed to both the Japanese version of Contra and, of course, the NES version of Contra, or when you're talking about things like Contra Hardcore on the Genesis versus the Mega Drive version. So there were some regional differences, so it is sort of worth checking out, even though it's essentially the same game. There's just little differences thrown in there. What I think is very cool, though, is that there's going to be actual regional different games that will be released for free. We, of course, learned about that Castlevania 3 for the Castlevania Collection would be getting the Japanese version of this game brought over as a free download. And that game has an enhanced sound chip that actually sounds fantastic. It was actually built into the cartridge itself that really made the Castlevania 3 music for the NES really pop in the Famicom version of this game. So these are the games that we're going to be getting as a free download for regional differences. You will get the Japanese version of Contra, the arcade version, of Super Contra, the arcade version, of Super C, of Contra 3, the Alien Wars, of Operation C, and Contra Hardcore. And like I said, there are some regional differences with these games that are going to be available in both the Japanese version and the American versions of these games. Now, these will come at a later date, but I think one of the interesting things is how many different regional games they are putting on here of the Japanese versions that are in the Contra collection already. So far, we've only learned about Castlevania 3 getting the enhanced sound chip version of the Famicom version over on the Castlevania collection. So will there be more games coming to the Castlevania collection of the Japanese version in the Castlevania collection as available for a free download? I'm not quite sure, but if they're releasing a bunch of different Contra games for the Japanese versions in this collection, I don't see why they wouldn't include more of the Japanese versions of Castlevania in the Castlevania collection. And of course, it's going to have that cool little booklet, that digital booklet like we saw with the Castlevania collection, where it has different things like sketches, interviews with different people, level designs, and things like that. So all in all, the Contra Anniversary Collection looks like another complete winner. I love the game variety. I think it's pretty interesting that they're putting the Probotector games on there as well, as a lot of North American people have never played the Probotector games. Like I said, the main difference is you're playing as a robot instead of as a human, but it's still definitely a cool thing to see. So that's all I got for you guys today. Two very interesting announcements. One thing I think is very good, the Contra Anniversary Collection, and one thing that I don't know, man. I don't know. Nintendo really needs to do something about that and do it fast, or at least clarify. So let me know in the comments section down below what you think of everything. Are you still excited for Super Mario Maker 2, or is the lack of friend online play going to be a game breaker for you? And what do you think of the Contra Anniversary Collection lineup? And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this video. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Check out other videos on the channel. Get ready for E3 season, because we're going to be going balls deep into it. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.